My hand hovered inches from the apartment door. The old suitcase beside my leg leaned against the wall, its corners scratched from airports, buses, and job sites. I had carried it across another country for 3 long years. Now it had brought me back to the only place that had ever felt like home. Apartment 407. The number hadn't changed. Neither had the small crack near the doorbell. I smiled to myself. Home, I whispered. No one heard me. My fingers brushed the silver ring on my right hand. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't even perfectly round anymore after years of hard work. But it had survived everything with me. At least, that's what I believed. 3 years earlier, Olivia sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by open boxes. Half our apartment looked empty. The other half looked like it was trying not to cry. She held one of my sweaters against her face before folding it into the suitcase. You really packed your oldest one. It still keeps me warm. It also has 3 holes. It has memories. A tiny laugh escaped her. I'll buy you a better one when you come home. I walked over and sat beside her. You'll still be here when I come home. Her hands stopped moving. The room became quiet. She reached in her pocket and pulled out a tiny velvet box. I couldn't afford anything fancy. Neither could I. I opened my backpack and smiled. So neither could I. We both laughed. Inside my little box rested a simple silver ring. Inside hers, another one. The same design. No diamonds. No bright lights. Just 2 matching rings and a promise bigger than either of us. She slipped mine onto my finger. It doesn't mean we're engaged. I know. It just means... I know. She smiled through wet eyes. No matter how far you go, my way home is always you. She nodded. 3 years. 3 years. We can survive that. We have to. Our foreheads rested together. Neither of us wanted to let go first. The overseas contract sounded impossible when I first accepted it. Long hours, dangerous construction sites, almost no holidays. But the pay was more than I could earn at home in 7 years. We dreamed about buying a house, opening our own business one day, never worrying about rent again. Every sacrifice had a purpose. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The first few months were easier than I expected. Every morning started with her message. Good morning, Red Heart. Every night ended with another video call. Sometimes she showed me the rain outside our apartment. Sometimes I showed her sunsets over endless desert roads. She laughed when my cooking burned. I laughed when she forgot where she left her phone. Distance hurt, but hope made it bearable. Around month 8, the calls became shorter. You look tired. Work's been crazy. You should rest. I will. The screen froze. The connection returned. You still there? MHM. Another frozen screen. Another forced smile. I'll call tomorrow. Tomorrow came. Sometimes it didn't. I blamed the internet. Then work. Then time zones. There was always another excuse waiting for me. I accepted every one of them because the other possibility hurt too much. By the second year, I knew the pattern. If I called unexpectedly, no answer. If I texted, hours passed. Sometimes a whole day. Finally a reply. Sorry. Meeting all day. Talk later? I always answer the same way. Take care. Love you. No complaints. No pressure. No questions. I wanted to become the easiest person to love. Without noticing, I became the easiest person to ignore. Daniel noticed before I did. We worked together almost every day. One evening, he dropped into the chair beside me after another 12-hour shift. You waiting for someone? I smiled without looking away from my phone. Olivia. How long? Only 4 hours. He stared at me. That's not normal. She's busy. Ethan. She's busy. He sighed. I hope you're right. So do I. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Vacations came. I sold mine back to the company. Extra money meant fewer months before our future started. The others traveled. I worked. Birthdays passed. Christmas passed. My sister sent photos from family dinners. Grace always added the same message. You don't have to carry everything alone. I answered with smiling emojis. She never believed them. Near the end of the 3rd year, something changed. Not in Olivia. In me. I started counting days instead of months. 28, 17, 9, 3. Every sunrise felt lighter. I imagined her running into my arms at the airport. I imagined dinner together. Movies on the couch. Morning coffee. Normal life. That dream carried me through every exhausting shift. The company offered to fly me home with a welcome ceremony. I refused. I want to surprise someone. The manager laughed. Romantic. I've waited 3 years. She'll never forget that moment. Neither would I. Just not for the reason either of us expected. My phone still held hundreds of messages. Some were answered. Many weren't. I couldn't delete them. Every unanswered text felt like proof that tomorrow would finally be different. Good luck today. Miss you. Saw something that reminded me of us. Hope you smiled today. Sleep well. Love you. They stayed there. Tiny pieces of hope trapped inside a screen. A taxi dropped me outside the apartment building just before sunset. Everything looked smaller. The old bakery still stood across the street. The flower shop still smelled like spring. Children rode bicycles through the parking lot. Life had continued while I was away. I lifted my suitcase. The elevator creaked exactly the way I remembered. 4th floor. Apartment 407. My heartbeat refused to slow down. I adjusted my jacket, checked the ring, smoothed my hair. Ridiculous. She had seen me looking much worse. I smiled anyway. My hand reached toward the door. Then I stopped. A man's voice drifted through the apartment. Warm, comfortable, like he belonged there. Another voice answered. Olivia. She laughed. Not the polite laugh from our frozen video calls. Not the tired laugh she blamed on work. A real one. Bright. Carefree. The kind I'd spent 3 years trying to hear again. The apartment door began to open. My hand stayed frozen above the suitcase. A thought crashed into me before I could stop it. I may have come home to someone else's life. The door swung open. A man about my age stood there with an easy smile that disappeared the moment he noticed my suitcase. His hand still rested on the doorknob. He wore a loose t-shirt, comfortable sweatpants, and socks. Not the clothes of a guest. The clothes of someone who had stopped asking where things belonged. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Olivia stepped into the hallway. She carried 2 coffee mugs. One slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor. The sharp crack echoed through the apartment. Her face lost every bit of color. Ethan, my name barely reached me. I wasn't looking at her anymore. My eyes had drifted past her shoulder. The living room looked almost the same. The gray couch, the bookshelf, the small lamp near the window. Then the differences began to appear. A framed photo sat where ours used to be. Olivia stood beside Nathan at a beach. Both of them smiled at the camera. The picture of us was gone. My blanket lay neatly folded across the couch. I bought that blanket during our first winter together because she always complained about being cold during movie nights. Now someone else used it. 2 mugs rested on the coffee table. One belonged to her. The other belonged to me. My favorite dark blue mug. The one with a tiny chip near the handle. I had searched 3 stores before finding it because she once joked that every engineer needed a serious coffee mug. Someone else had been drinking from it. Nathan stepped back. Maybe I should. His voice faded. He understood enough without anyone explaining. Olivia finally moved. She took one careful step toward me. You weren't supposed to. She stopped herself. The words hung between us. I wasn't supposed to what? Come home. Surprise her? Find this? I wanted to surprise you. Her eyes closed for a second. I know, neither of us raised our voices. There wasn't enough strength left for that. Nathan picked up his keys from the counter. I'll give you 2 some space. He avoided my eyes while walking past me. His shoulder brushed mine. He whispered one sentence before reaching the elevator. I'm sorry. The elevator doors closed. Now it was only us. 3 years, reduced to one quiet hallway. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself. It isn't what you're thinking. I glanced toward the living room again. What am I thinking? Her lips parted. Nothing came out. The apartment answered for her. The missing photograph. The second toothbrush near the sink. A man's jacket hanging beside hers. My coffee mug. My blanket. Our home. Every object had already told the story. You've been living together. No. The answer came too quickly. Then her shoulders dropped. He spends time here. How much time? She rubbed her forehead. It's complicated. I gave a slow nod. It stopped being complicated the moment I heard him laugh inside our apartment. Tears gathered in her eyes. I never wanted you to find out like this. That sentence hurt more than anything else. Not because she admitted something, because she admitted there was something to hide. When she understood the question. When did everything change? Months seemed to pass before she answered. I don't know. You do. It happened slowly. I waited. He helped after Mom got sick. Another pause. You were so far away. I was working for us. I know. I miss birthdays. She lowered her head. I know. I skipped every vacation. I know. I counted every day. I know. Each answer sounded smaller than the one before. My hands rested on the suitcase handle. The same handle I had imagined carrying through this doorway while she hugged me. Instead, it kept me standing upright. I trusted you. I never stopped caring about you. The words landed without weight. Caring wasn't the promise we made. You wore the ring. She looked at her hand. The silver ring was gone. A pale circle remained on her finger. She quickly hid her hand behind her back. No explanation arrived. It didn't need to. My eyes wandered around the apartment once more. Books had moved. Furniture had shifted. Fresh flowers stood near the window. This place had continued living while I existed only as a voice through a phone. She stepped closer. I wanted to tell you. When her breathing became uneven. After you came back, I frowned. What does that mean? She covered her face for a moment. I thought, maybe if we talked, maybe I could figure everything out first. The hallway suddenly felt colder. You're going to let me come home. She nodded weakly. You're going to let me believe everything was still real. I didn't know what to do. You could have told me the truth. I was scared, so you chose to lie. I chose to wait. The difference no longer mattered. Every lonely night overseas returned at once. Every missed call, every frozen video screen, every short message, every excuse. None of them had been random. Distance hadn't broken us overnight. It had happened one ignored moment at a time. I never wanted to hurt you. A tired smile crossed my face. But you did. She reached toward me. My body moved before my mind could think. One step backward. Her hand remained hanging in the air. That tiny movement broke something inside her. Ethan, I don't hate you. She blinked. I just don't recognize this place anymore. Her breathing turned shaky. This is still your home. No. I glanced at the framed picture one last time. It stopped being mine long before today. Without another word, I turned around. She didn't grab my arm. She didn't block the doorway. Behind me, I heard quiet footsteps. The apartment doors stayed open. The hallway stretched ahead like an endless road. Please answer my calls. I kept walking. The elevator doors closed between us. Her face disappeared. Only then did my knees begin to feel weak. Night covered the city by the time I reached Grace's apartment. She opened the door before I could knock twice. Her smile vanished. You saw something? I couldn't answer. She pulled me inside. The suitcase rolled across the floor. Neither of us picked it up. Grace handed me a glass of water. You don't have to protect her anymore. I keep thinking there's another explanation. She sat across from me. If there is, will it bring back those 3 years? I stared into the water. No. Will it erase what you saw? No. Her voice softened, then stopped fighting reality. My phone vibrated. Olivia. Again. I placed it face down. Another vibration. Then another. Grace watched quietly. You don't owe anyone an immediate answer. The calls continued. 10, 14, 17, 19. The screen kept lighting up in the dark room. Each vibration felt weaker than the last. When the 20th call appeared, I reached into my pocket. The silver ring slid from my finger. The skin beneath it looked strangely pale. Grace placed a small envelope on the table without speaking. I slipped the ring inside. On the front, I wrote only one word. Olivia. The hardest part wasn't losing Olivia. The hardest part was waking up every morning with nowhere to send my first message. My phone still reached for my hand before I even opened my eyes. Old habits refused to disappear just because my heart wanted them gone. More than once, my thumb hovered over her name. Each time, I locked the screen instead. The silence after that choice lasted only a few seconds. The peace stayed much longer. The first weeks passed like heavy rain. Everything worked. Nothing felt alive. Grace never forced long conversations. She simply left breakfast on the table before work. Some morning she knocked on the guest room door. Coffee's getting cold. That was enough. She knew I would come out when I was ready. Olivia kept calling, then texting, then emailing. The messages became longer. Please let me explain. I know I hurt you. You deserve the truth. I read the first few. After that, I stopped opening them. Words had arrived too late. One evening my phone lit up with another familiar name. Daniel. I answered after the second ring. You still breathing? Barely. Good. I laughed to spite myself. That's your version of comfort? No. This is. He paused. How much money did you bring home? I frowned. What? The savings. Enough for a house. So why are you spending your days staring at a ceiling? I don't know what else to do. You built bridges in another country. I did. You solved problems most engineers avoid. I guess. You survived 3 years away from everyone. His voice grew firmer. Stop acting like your life ended because one promise did. Daniel flew back home a week later. We met at a quiet cafe. He spread several papers across the table. Look, I scanned them. Business plans, cost estimates, office rentals, consulting licenses. You've been busy. I've been waiting for you to stop feeling sorry for yourself. A small smile appeared. I wasn't expecting homework. I'm giving you something better. He tapped one page. A future. The idea frightened me. Working for another company always felt safe. Starting my own meant risking everything I had saved. Daniel leaned back. Tell me one thing. I nodded. If revenge disappeared tomorrow, what would you build instead? The question stayed with me long after we left the cafe. That night, I barely slept. By sunrise, I had my answer. My future, not my revenge. 3 months later, I unlocked the door to a tiny office. The room smelled like fresh paint. 2 desks, 1 computer, 1 coffee machine, a large window facing the street. Nothing fancy. Everything mine. The landlord handed me the keys. Congratulations. The cool metal rested in my palm. Those keys weighed almost nothing. Yet they felt heavier than every bag I had carried overseas. They unlocked more than a room. They unlocked another version of me. The first clients came slowly. A small factory needed safety inspections. A construction company wanted design advice. Every completed project led to another recommendation. Soon my calendar filled itself. Busy days left less room for old memories. Grace stopped by after work one afternoon. She looked around the office with a proud smile. So, what? You finally look awake again. I've been busy. Exactly. She placed a small plant beside my computer. This place needs something alive. I laughed. I can barely keep myself alive. You'll learn. Olivia's messages became less frequent. Not because she had given up, because I never answered. One afternoon, I finally opened my contacts. Her name still sat near the top. One tap. Delete contact. The phone asked for confirmation. My fingers stayed still for several seconds. 3 years. Thousands of memories. One decision. I pressed confirm. The screen became strangely empty. My life didn't. Rumors reached me without asking. Nathan and Olivia argued often. He stayed late at work. Canceled dinner plans. Forgot important dates. Friends mentioned it carefully, almost afraid I would celebrate. I didn't. Pain repeating itself wasn't something worth cheering for. Another month passed. My assistant knocked softly on my office door. Someone's here. Who? Olivia. The room became very quiet. Not because of fear, because I realized I no longer knew what I wanted to hear from her. Send her in. The door opened slowly. She looked different, not because of makeup or clothes. The confidence she once carried had faded. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. She noticed the office before noticing me. You built all this? I nodded. It started small. It's beautiful. Thank you. Her gaze wandered toward framed engineering certificates on the wall. You always talked about doing this. I finally stopped waiting. Those words landed harder than I intended. She understood anyway. She sat across from my desk. Neither of us rushed to speak. The distance between our chairs felt larger than the room itself. I've imagined this conversation every day. I haven't. Her fingers tightened around her handbag. I deserve that. I stayed quiet. I wasn't honest. I know. I kept thinking I could fix everything before you came home. I know. I convinced myself there would still be time. There wasn't. A shaky breath escaped her. I never realized how quickly trust disappears. It doesn't disappear quickly. She lifted her eyes. It disappears one broken promise at a time. She reached into her bag. I wrote you a letter. She placed an envelope on my desk. I know. You know. You mailed one with a ring. Hope flickered across her face. Then, you read it? I opened a drawer. The envelope rested exactly where I had placed it weeks earlier. Still sealed. Still untouched. I laid it gently on the desk between us. I never opened it. The color drained from her face. You never even looked? I already knew enough. But my future stopped depending on your explanation. She stared at the unopened envelope. Tears didn't fall. They didn't need to. That sealed paper carried more weight than any speech. I thought if you understood the important part the day I came home. She slowly pushed the envelope back toward herself. Her hands trembled. I don't know why this hurts more than hearing you yell. I don't need to yell. No. She forced a weak smile. You really don't. She stood near the door. One hand rested on the handle. I should go. I nodded politely. Before leaving, she turned around. There is one thing you deserve to know. I waited. Nathan. She struggled to finish. He barely comes home anymore. I remained silent. He keeps choosing work. Another pause. When we talk, it feels like he's somewhere else. She laughed once. A tired, empty sound. I guess now I know what waiting feels like. The door opened. I never understood your loneliness until it became mine. She stepped into the hallway. The door closed softly behind her. I stayed where I was. No victory filled the room. No celebration. Only a quiet understanding. The woman who once left me waiting had finally learned what that kind of waiting could do to a heart. Instead of anger, something unexpected settled inside me. Pity. The first rumor reached me during lunch. Daniel set his coffee on my desk and leaned against the window. I heard Nathan accepted a job in Seattle. I kept reading a construction report. Good for him. He leaves next month. My eyes stayed on the papers. Daniel studied my face for a moment before smiling. You really have changed. I don't need updates about people who chose another path. He picked up his coffee. That's exactly what I meant. The door closed behind him. The report in front of me suddenly became easier to finish. Life moved faster than I expected. My office grew from one room into three. 2 engineers joined the company. A receptionist greeted clients before they reached my door. Every new contract reminded me that my future no longer depended on promises made years ago. It depended on the work I chose every morning. Grace visited one afternoon carrying a paper bag. Lunch. You always know when I forget to eat. You always forget to eat. She unpacked sandwiches while studying the office walls. You've almost filled every shelf. There's still empty spaces. She smiled. Leave a few. Success should have room to grow. Before she left, Grace hesitated near the door. I ran into Olivia yesterday. My hands paused over the keyboard. How is she? Tired. That single word carried enough weight. Grace sighed. She asked about you. I hope you didn't tell her much. I didn't plan to. She folded her arms. But then she started talking. Grace lowered herself into the chair across from me. She honestly believed you chose work over her. A quiet laugh escaped me. I know. So I told her something. I waited. I told her about your second year overseas. The memories returned immediately. A damaged bridge. Heavy rain. Broken equipment. Endless overtime. You didn't have to. I think I did. Grace's voice softened. I told her you missed Dad's memorial because your company refused emergency leave. My fingers tightened around my coffee cup. I told her you worked 16-hour shifts for months. Another pause. I told her you sold every vacation day because you wanted enough money for the house both of you dreamed about. She reached across the desk. She didn't know. No, you never told her. I didn't want my sacrifices to become debts she had to repay. Grace shook her head slowly. You loved quietly. I thought that was enough. A week later, my phone rang during dinner. Margaret, Olivia's mother. I stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. Hello. Her voice sounded older than I remembered. Ethan, thank you for picking up. What can I do for you? I wanted to apologize. The word surprised me. You don't owe me anything. I pushed Olivia toward comfort. She paused to steady herself. I kept telling her that waiting wasn't fair. I remained silent. I never realized she would mistake convenience for love. The restaurant around me faded into the background. I can't change what happened. No, I only wanted you to know. I see your heart now. I thanked her quietly before ending the call. Some apologies arrive with honesty. They still arrive too late. Several days passed before I saw Olivia again. Not in my office. Not by accident. Outside the hospital. I had finished visiting an injured coworker when I noticed her sitting alone near the entrance. She held a clipboard against her knees. She hadn't noticed me yet. The evening wind turned several pages. One page slipped free and landed near my feet. I bent down to pick it up. An emergency contact form. Most of the spaces were complete. One line remained empty. Emergency contact. Blank. She hurried over. Thank you. Her voice broke when she recognized me. Ethan. I handed the paper back. You okay? My mom had some tests. Is she all right? The doctors think she'll recover. Relief crossed both our faces. Then the distance returned. She glanced at the form in her hands. I didn't know who to write. The empty lines spoke louder than anything else. Nathan had already left. I learned that without asking. She noticed my eyes drift toward the blank space. He moved. I nodded once. He didn't ask me to come. No bitterness filled her voice. Only exhaustion. We barely talk now. I remember another time. Another person. Another phone growing quieter each week. Life had completed a painful circle. Before leaving the hospital, she surprised me. Would you have 10 minutes? I considered walking away. Instead, I pointed toward a nearby park. We found an empty bench beneath old trees. The sun slowly disappeared behind the buildings. She watched families walking together. I used to think love was supposed to be exciting. She smiled sadly. I confused peace with boredom. I listened without interrupting. When you worked late overseas, I felt lonely. She rubbed her hands together. Then Nathan was always nearby. Another slow breath. I never noticed the difference between someone close and someone committed. She reached into her purse. A folded photograph rested inside. Our old apartment. The living room. The couch where we planned our future. I moved out. I studied the picture. It feels empty. I know. Her eyes filled with quiet regret. The silence there is different now. She laughed once under her breath. I made your favorite pasta last month. I looked toward the fading sunlight. No one came home to eat it. The image stayed with me. A cold dinner waiting on a table. The same waiting I had carried across 3 years. I finally understand something. She turned toward me. Every promotion you earned. She swallowed hard. Every dollar you saved. A tear rolled down before she brushed it away. Every success you have now came from sacrifices I called absence. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything left to explain. I thought you stopped choosing me. Her voice barely rose above the evening breeze. The truth is, you were choosing us every single day. The words settled between us. Heavy, honest, impossible to change. She wiped her eyes and managed a weak smile. I spent so much time waiting for you to come home. Another pause. I never waited for your reasons. The park lights flickered on. People continued walking past us. Life moved forward, even when hearts wished it would pause. She stood slowly. So this is really the end? I remained seated. She searched my face one last time. I need to ask. Her fingers trembled around the folded photograph. Is there even one small chance for us? The evening breeze carried away the last sounds from the street. I didn't search for words. I didn't invent comfort. I didn't offer hope I couldn't give. My hands rested quietly on my knees. She understood before I answered. Because I never did. The silence became my answer. The message arrived on a quiet Sunday morning. It wasn't long. One last meeting. The park. The bench. No expectations. I stared at the screen while the sunrise painted my apartment in soft gold. Months earlier, I would have spent hours wondering what every word meant. This time, I already knew. Some conversations weren't about changing the future. They were about accepting it. I typed only one reply. I'll be there. The park looked almost exactly the same. Children chased each other across the grass. An old man fed birds near the pond. The fountain still made the same peaceful sound. Time had moved forward without asking anyone's permission. The bench waited beneath the tall oak tree, the same place where two young people once believed love alone could defeat distance. I arrived first. The morning air carried the smell of fresh rain. My hand rested in my jacket pocket. The empty place where the silver ring once sat no longer felt strange. It simply felt honest. Soft footsteps stopped beside the bench. Olivia wore a light gray coat. No bright smile. No carefully planned makeup. She looked like someone who had finally stopped pretending everything was fine. She sat down slowly, leaving enough space between us to respect the life we no longer shared. Neither of us rushed to speak. The silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It simply gave both of us room to breathe. "Thank you for coming." Her voice remained calm. "I almost didn't." She nodded gently. "I know." A faint smile appeared. "I think the old me would have begged. And today I don't have that right." She folded her hands together. "I'm not here to ask you to come back." The word surprised me. Not because I expected another apology. Because she finally understood what had already been lost. "I've spent months thinking about everything." She glanced toward the pond. "I kept asking myself when I stopped loving you." Another quiet pause. "I never did." I listened without interrupting. "I stopped protecting what we had." She drew a slow breath. "I confused attention with love." Her fingers tightened around each other. "I confused convenience with commitment." A weak laugh escaped. Having someone nearby felt easier than waiting for someone far away. She shook her head. "I didn't realize that easy choices can become lifelong regrets." The breeze carried a few fallen leaves across the path. Families walked past us without recognizing the story unfolding on that bench. Sometimes the biggest endings happen in complete silence. "I blamed your absence." She looked toward the sky. The truth was much harder. Her eyes returned to mine. "I was impatient. I was lonely. I was selfish." She didn't lower her head after saying those words. She accepted them. That mattered. I kept hoping there would be another chance. Her smile faded. Then I realized another chance belongs to the person who was hurt, not the one who caused the pain. I gave a small nod. "That's true." She reached into her purse. The familiar envelope appeared, the same one that had once held my promise ring. She placed it carefully between us. I kept it. So did I. Another gentle smile crossed her face. "I thought you might." She opened the envelope. The simple silver ring rested in her palm. Sunlight reflected from its worn surface. Tiny scratches covered the metal. 3 years of waiting had left their marks, just like they had left marks on me. I wanted to return it properly. She held it toward me. I didn't reach for it. Instead, I opened my hand. Inside rested the matching ring I had carried with me that morning. Her eyes widened. "You brought yours." I thought it was time. Together we walked toward the old wooden bench where we had exchanged those rings years before. No dramatic music. No tears falling on the ground. Just two people standing beside a memory that had finally reached its ending. She placed her ring on the bench. A moment later, I placed mine beside it. The silver circles rested next to each other one last time. Neither of us tried to pick them up again. I used to think losing you was my punishment. She watched the rings quietly. Now I understand. I waited. My punishment is knowing exactly what I threw away. Those words held no request for comfort. Only truth. I've thought about revenge. Her confession caught me by surprise. She smiled sadly after noticing my expression. "Not against you." She shook her head. "Against myself." I frowned, living every day wondering what life could have been. She looked toward the bench again. "That's enough."